All right, I think we're live.
Good afternoon.
Let me just double check on my page.
See, at least this time it isn't me though. Like I was talking, I was at mid sentence, I was ready.
Ma'am. Yes, we are currently live.
Good afternoon, everyone.
You are watching At Ease with Cia.
And Lashrecse.
And hi. We are coming to you a little bit earlier in the day than we typically are because our session got done for today. We're going to cover quite a few things, but Delegate aired.
So first of all, I expect public praise because I was ready as soon as we went live. I was not talking mid sentence. I was not singing. I was right on the dot. So everyone who's watching, just take notes.
No.
When you go back and start this from the beginning.
Everyone who is watching knows that we demand and uplift Black excellence, and you will not use the other party's playbook of low expectations and standards. We're not doing it. We got a new president. Our vice president is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, so we are striving for excellence.
Greek love, fine.
You had to say it.
Love, no problem. I can do that because I love her.
How are you doing, Delegate Aired?
I love you, so is Greek love. Well, in that case, how about the Super Bowl? I don't know about you, but I did tune in. I mean, I'm just gonna say go Chiefs because that's who I was rooting for. I know they lost, but huge fan of Patrick Mahomes. And also, how about the halftime show?
Go Sports. Go Sports.
See, I'm talking to the wrong person clearly, but I
watched it.
Say, I am quite baffled by the number of people who said that the Weeknd's halftime show was trash. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was singing my heart out. I knew the songs. And if you know the Weeknd, if you've been following his style, his approach, it was literally him in full essence. So, you know, it ain't J-Lo and Shakira, but it was good.
That whole read reminds me that I am big sister and you are little sister. I'm like, what's going on? What was on their faces?
That is the same look that is on the cover of his albums. But you have to understand the Weeknd's energy to make sense of it.
Okay. Did you stay tuned after the game to watch Queen Latifah's The Equalizer?
I did not.
Okay. So that's when I'll take this. Oh my gosh. Like, I know that I'm not in a position to enter into a commitment with a new show. I'm just not. However, that first episode was really good. I was on the edge of my seat. I really loved the action. Got a little bit too much adrenaline, more adrenaline than watching that game. But
that we can agree on. It was an exciting game.
Okay.
The team is the Giants, and I wanted an exciting game just to watch, and we did not get that.
Okay. Well, we can agree. We agree. So today, something happened that I know is catching quite a few people off guard. We just adjourned Sine Die. How is that possible, Delegate Aired, if we still have bills? And why are we now moving into a special session?
Great question, Delegate Price. So if you all are in the bubble, the political bubble with us, you know that our session every winter in even years is 45 days. I'm sorry, 60 days. And in odd years, it's 45. Well, you know, we got into a bit of a political back and forth with the other side of the aisle, and they only wanted to agree, and I'm not going to leave out the Senate, but they only wanted to agree to 30-day session, which is unusual for as long as I can remember for our short session to only be 30 days. And so to rectify that, the governor on Friday, we'll get into Friday, a lot happened on Friday, but declared that we would be called into special session to continue the work of our traditional short legislative session, giving us that complete 46-day period of time. So Delegate Price, since we adjourned Sunny Dive today, talk about what people can expect for the rest of the week.
Yep. So we will post the schedule. The morning committees for the House are going to stay the same, but on Wednesday, when we go into session again, it'll be the 2021 special session 1. And so at this point, we are at crossover, which means the bills that started in the House will now go to the Senate. So the Senate will be looking at HBs, and the bills that started in the Senate cross over to the House, and the House will be looking at SBs. So if you have your list that we talked about before of like those 5 really, really important bills that you're tracking, if you have a HB in front of it, you're going to be watching the Senate committees now. And if it has a SB in front of it, you're going to be watching the House committees now. Thus, that's what we call crossover, with the exception of the budget. The budget has its own timeline. So don't forget, a bill has to pass out of the Senate and out of the House to get to the governor for signature. Now, I've been seeing on Twitter, people saying that we've passed legislation, that, we've legalized marijuana or this or that. We have not. That is not how that happens. The Senate bill got out the Senate, the House bill got out the House, and now they each have to pass the other chambers and get to the governor and be signed into law before we can say legislation is about to come into law.
And to be clear, there's a lot that has to happen for agreement to occur. We talked about on past episodes this idea of conference committees. And what happens is once the crossover has occurred, we have to come to terms with the actual language in each of those bills. And if we use just the legislation that speaks to the legalization of marijuana alone, the approach that the Senate takes and the approach that the House takes is very different. And so once
expungement, what else we got?
on every level, they are very different. And so nothing has passed yet, and we must get consensus on the language. I believe the same is true for the automatic expungement bill itself. I don't believe the same is true for the abolishment of the death penalty. I do believe there are some nuances, mandatory minimums even.
The constitutional amendment about the right to vote, whether it's a straight up right to vote or it's an automatic restoration of rights, that's different.
We can go down the list, and we're going to get into those on a special episode, not today, but ultimately we can celebrate, but the work is not done yet. And
right.
Critical that we follow every single conversation that continues to happen on these bills until they go into conference, until they are voted out of conference, and then on their way to the governor.
So if you have been following a bill and you contacted all the delegates to say, support this, support this, support this, you now need to go to that virginiageneralassembly.gov website and go to senator listings and find those email addresses and phone numbers and follow those bills through the process as well. You can see on there, and we'll drop the link. You can see the committee assignments. The Senate often does not have subcommittees like the House does. So the committee is the big dance or whatever. So you want to pay special attention to those. And again, we'll get you the new kind of revised schedule. It looks like we'll be having floor sessions at noon for the House, which is different pre-crossover. So we're going back to that noon time frame. So we'll have committee and subcommittee meetings before and after, probably still some long days, but it also doesn't sound like there are quite as many bills that came over. So I think the senators are in for a little bit of a heavy lift that we had at the beginning, but still follow every single bill. And of course, ask us any questions. So Delegate Erin, you were going to say something about Friday.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so we've hit a few things. I mean, Friday was really busy. We talked about the special session being called. We've talked about crossover and the number of bills that have been sent over to each respective body, but also less legislative, but still pertinent and relevant. The governor announced that he will be asking for all schools to develop a plan to reopen by March 15th. And I wanted to bring this conversation here because there's a lot of moving pieces to this conversation. Ultimately, the one thing that I want to impress upon you is please continue to contact us. Let us know your thoughts and your opinions about that decision. and the elements you want us to take into account as we work through the remainder of the session to ensure that there are resources in place for the reopening. But then also your local school boards, make sure you're contacting them and staying in contact with them as well, because a lot of this will be locally driven. We're going to try and make sure that the foundation is in place that's equitable and fair for all of the school districts around the state. But ultimately, final decisions and approach will come down to your local governing school boards. And so make sure you remain in contact with them as well.
And so, Delegate Erin, I just want to uplift two quick points on that. One, no one delegate speaks for the entire whatever. Just like really and truly, you gotta speak to your delegate so that y'all can talk about what's happening in y'all area. There are some places that have had the benefit of not having as many COVID cases. Then we have an article that comes out that of the ton of new cases in Virginia, Hampton Roads is like 27% of the entire state's cases. So like nobody gets to tell you how to feel about COVID and a global pandemic that is still raging with two new variants, right? So I want to normalize hesitance and fear, or the healthy fear that causes you to be cautious in a global pandemic, because it's still out there, right? Don't look at the Super Bowl. I don't care if it was 25,000 and that's down from a whole, that's still a lot of people, y'all. Like, don't look at that, but look at the things that you've been doing, the things that the CDC has been saying do, like those types of things when it comes down to like how you're protecting yourself and your family. The second thing that I'm starting to see that I just need to I need y'all to nip it in the bud. This is not legislator versus teacher versus parent, like at all. All of us are working for the safety and success of our schools, to include the students, the teachers and staff, and the parents. Like it's got to be a together thing. As soon as we start, pitting each other against each other, we're not going to be able to come to the best solution. And we have lost sight of who should truly be at the center of this conversation. And that, I think, is, the student. And I know a ton of teachers, I know a ton of parents, and all y'all love them students with your whole heart. So let's focus on that as we're having these discussions. But I do also want to uplift what Delegate Bourne said. There are some of our areas that when you talk ventilation, we were struggling with ventilation prior to a pandemic. And so this idea that one size could fit all, that's not what's happening, like at all. This is like Delegate Erin said, like this is a locally driven thing based on what is needed to keep families safe, and understand that just because you're tired of your kids, we want to also make sure that we're looking at the science. And I'm kidding, but we're looking at the science to say that because kids aren't catching COVID.
You said, what about the
right. Like, guys, it was a joke. But seriously, if you're out there saying open up the schools because kids aren't catching COVID, you are not looking at, but they can take it back to their families, to their grandmas, to their, the teachers can like, let's look at this globally and holistically and breathe before we start pointing fingers.
And I just have to emphasize being on the record. So I thought it was important for us to have this conversation here because we are cognizant of the varying opinions that exist depending on where you are and the circumstances in your specific community. But be on the record as a parent, be on the record as an educator, be on the record, period, about where you are as it relates to this transition, because you can add value and voice to the conversation as we are just trying to make sure we are considering a plan in its entirety. So, to me, talking about a directive to develop a plan to go back to school by March 15th, that's one piece of a larger plan that we must take into consideration. We absolutely have to ensure that we're still driving on vaccines. We have to absolutely ensure we're still driving on testing. We can't forget how critical testing will continue to be. we have to continue to drive on making sure that the resources, once your child gets into the school, is there, because what we don't want is just to have a body in a building. And so all of these things will be part of a comprehensive plan, but please be on the record about where you are, as your leaders are developing these operational plans.
Absolutely. And stay tuned. I know Delegate Aaron has had a couple of town hall meetings, and I'll be having one really bringing some information to the table as people are considering and discussing vaccinations. A lot of the plans are banking on communities being vaccinated. If there is legitimate vaccine hesitance in, your family or the community, we need to talk about it, and we need to talk about it in an open and judgment-free way. And that's what we're going to be hosting for the 95th district coming up soon. I know the Richmond area, I think Delegate Bagby has announced one, but there's no shortage of information. So if you have questions, please continue to get answers to those questions, because a lot of the plans are going to be based on the assumption that as we're moving forward with vaccinations, the communities are being vaccinated. And we'll also make sure that you have information. Well, you should contact your delegate if you have information, or if you need information about the vaccine rollout, because it's very localized as well. Anything else, Delegate Aaron?
Yeah, I just want to remind folks that there is a lot to talk about. I chuckled because someone said we needed to make this a 30-minute episode to go through the bills. So don't think we're skipping that. We absolutely are thinking about the different variances between all of these bills that have passed for crossover. We are going to do a special episode, maybe with some special guests, to actually do a deep dive into these issues. So don't miss when we announce the next special episode on crossover.
So we had talked before about self-care, and I just want to do a sister to sister check-in. How's that going?
I am pleased to share with you. I spent the weekend doing some yoga, hydrating, drinking my water, and I think that's a great start. I did make a bet with my husband that if the Chiefs lost, I would do 5 miles and 100 squats. So that's my week.
Because y'all could have just sports bet it. Like that's legal now in Virginia.
I actually wish I would have, but I need to jumpstart getting ready to hit these doors. And so it's a good, happy marriage.
Awesome. Well, I have prioritized cooking, and that's something that I have not done on a consistent basis during session. But I'll tell you what, me and my Instapot, we are getting to know each other really well, and I actually have some dishes on now that are cooking for tonight, so I'm a little excited about that. But that is good.
Huh? We'll have to do a special episode and show us what she's making in the kitchen.
So listen, I'm gonna leave all that doing things while also talking about things to AOC, because I am not. I need to be seated and focused in order to get the things out. But I can tell y'all how it comes out. My applesauce, I will tell you.
Send pictures.
The applesauce is amazing. Indian food, got you. Butter chicken, but yeah.
Well, you guys, questions. As you know, we see the chats during and after as we prepare to plan our special crossover edition. Please make sure you drop your questions in the chat, or if there's anything we can help you track during the week as we resume our legislative session. Reminder, there's no floor session tomorrow, but we will pick back up on Wednesday.
But tomorrow there is the joint Courts of Justice Committee at 2 p.m. that will be interviewing for the open judge slots. And so a few folks from, I know both of our areas will be interviewing for that to become judges. And then yeah, we start back up on Wednesday. We'll get that to you. I don't see any questions, but as always, if you want to drop your question, we get those notifications so we can come back to them. Anything else, Delegate Aaron?
Nope, I think that's
okay. Y'all have a good one. Talk to you sometime this week. We'll let you know.
Bye.